Hi, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell. They call me the Hall of Fame trainer of champions. I would travel the world for past, present, and future stars. Hey, look, we got a Thursday night special show, and boy, is it special. In coming to you live, Vincent Cream, who is the grandson of Jersey Joe Walcott, and we're going to bring another family member from a great African American champion in. So, hey, how you doing, Vince? How you doing, brother?
Aaron, I'm doing well. Always good to see you, my friend. It's exciting. I'm excited to be here on the show with you tonight, and excited to introduce you and the world to my very very close friend and brother, Darian Gans,
How you doing,
descendant
my brother?
of great Joe Gans, the original and first African American world champion. So, Darian, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. How you doing, Aaron? What's up, my brother Vince? It's an honor to be here. I'm feeling really good about this conversation. Just
Well, first of all, let me tell the listed audience who may not know who Joe Gans was. Joe Gans was the first African American lightweight champion. He was the first world champion in the history of boxing. So, he was born in 1874 and he died in 1910. So he had a long, good career. He was well known. And Darian is coming to you live from Baltimore, Maryland, where that
No,
was the
he's in
home.
Cam.
I'm yeah, I'm in Camden, New Jersey.
Now,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
All right. So look, Joe Gans, man, let's jump right into him. How is Joe Gans related to you?
Well, first I want to start with my great grandfather, Henry Gans Sr. That's where my connection comes in. It has been a long, staple, standing story, oral history in our family that was passed down from Henry Gans, who left to my grandfather that he is my great uncle. So that's the story in our family.
Okay, because there's a lot of things that people say about Joe Gans, and that his last name was Gant instead of Gans. Is that the newspaper people have made a mistake on his last name, and they gave him that name, and they want to say that his name was Joe Gant, and they said he was an orphan, and they said that he was born with a different name. How do you feel, and how does the family feel?
Well, the Gant, the Gans surname, a lot of names in our history, in Black history, surnames do change for different reasons. And a lot of my research, I've learned that some people, some babies come into the world with a name that is no relation to the rest of the family, but the bloodline is there. What that means is there's a story there, and that story, we still we feel confident that, and we know, that there, with that story being there, that the connection is there. The names do change. People change from leaving one place in America to escape to another. Families were often, after slavery, Reconstruction era, they were placed in different territories. So they may have been from Tennessee, and then moved, the whole family moved, sold off to North Carolina, which that would change a name underneath slavery, or it's just different ways that the name could have changed. Actually, in a lot of my research, family names Gaines, Gaines, is often confused with Gans, and the Gant name is definitely in my lineage too,
Okay.
through
Well,
DNA.
the history of Joe Gans, what does the family, any family stories that the family has of him in the family?
Yes, there are. So my grandfather, going back to Henry Gans Sr., uh, he migrated from the South uh, up to Altoona, Pennsylvania at a very young age, between 9 or 14. So he was on his own, traveling to Altoona, then settling in Darby Township. So while in Darby Township, of course, with the skills he learned from Altoona with the Quaker people there, um, that's where the stories come in of him leaving that legacy of basically passing that down. That you know, my grandfather, as a matter of fact, he would actually be in tears, banging on tables. This is the stories that we've heard, crying and trying to instill in my uncles and aunts to never forget Joe Gans. This is your family. There are stories of Jack Johnson and Joe Gans spending time in Chester. They're the family stories. Chester is not too far from Darby Township. It's literally probably 10 or 15 minutes on the highway. So we've heard many stories like that in the area. There was some memorabilia left, gold pocket watch, which a lot of fighters did get as gifts. That was something that was left to my great grandfather, but over time and then things being mishandled, I mean, we don't have that anymore. But they were part of the stories, and that's just a couple of stories that I've heard.
That you do recall.
Yes.
So on November 25th, 1874, in Baltimore, Maryland, that's when he was born. Is that your recollection of what you know?
Well, yeah, from accounts, yes, that's what I know. My grandfather was actually born in 1872, so he was a couple years older than him. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So in your family, right? Did they ever talk about any relationship to a Joseph Butts?
Um, I have not heard that. I've heard of him of through, of course, what they have available now, but I haven't heard the Butts name mentioned as of yet.
Is
So
there a Joseph Gaines or Gant in your family?
there's a Joseph Gans in my family, which is my great uncle. No, my uncle is. Pardon me on that. My uncle is a bishop. And he lives in D.C. He's 91 years old. He was actually named after Joe Gans by my grandfather, Henry Gans Jr. So that name still stayed in the family, uh, and he was basically a namesake from Joe Gans. And in fact, he was one of the catalysts that kind of kept that legacy going at all our reunions. He would officiate our family reunions, and he would talk about Joe Gans. And as all of my grandfather had 18 children, so that story circulated through those 18 children, and he was the one that kind of spearheaded that and kept it alive. And just one of them, but my other uncle too, Curtis Gans, who was like the family historian. But my uncle Joseph Gans, he is still alive. He's still strong, and he's still telling those stories.
Okay, I want to ask you this: are you aware that Joseph or Joe Gans or Gant, he got married? Are you aware of the marriage?
He was actually married. He had four wives.
Okay, come on
And
with it.
yeah, so in my research,
Well, no, hey man, that's why I'm asking you. Your
yeah,
family, man.
he
Hey,
had,
you're telling the story. You know about it. This I'm trying to pull it out, you champ.
yeah, yeah. So he had four wives. One of his wives he married in 1900. So he married her in New York City. Her name was Madge Watkins. That was her. Madge Warren was her stage name. So she was an actress in vaudeville. Black vaudeville was basically entertainment, acting, singing, and these were some of the stars of that era. So he married her. He was 23, she was 19 years old in New York City. And actually, I actually have the copy of that marriage license
Wow.
that that I've been able to study through that. So that was interesting to see that he didn't just reside in Baltimore. He lived in New York City.
Yes, he
Uh,
did.
yeah, so it's like he's been in his short span of life. He has traveled. He has been around the country in his sport, but he has been in other places other than Baltimore. But he has been other places.
Well, later on in this, as we're interviewing you, we're gonna cover his death, and
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you what age and all of that. But
Okay.
right now, we're just digging in from the beginning, the family part
Yeah.
of Joe Gans, and the listening audience that are tuning in from around the world as we're talking about Joe Gans, who was the first African American world champion, who won the lightweight championship before Jack Johnson, who's the first African American heavyweight champion. A lot of times people get that mixed up, but
Right.
Gans was the first champion, and we have his sixth generation strong uh, grandson or nephew, correct?
Yes. I'm actually the fourth generation from my great grandfather. So
All
it's the
right,
fourth.
sixth generation strong about Joe Gans' family. And also we have Vincent Cream, who is the grandson of Jersey Joe Walcott. So, Vince, come on into this conversation because
Okay.
you were the one who wanted to spearhead getting Darian out there to get him known, and that's why I have you on the show. And it's always good to have family members, former great people. Come on into the show,
Yeah,
Vincent. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, and it's nice to see Darian. Really like the spitting image of Joe Gans. If you had pictures of Joe Gans up and put him next to Darian, he's the same height, size, pretty much got the same head and face as Joe Gans. But my connection to Darian was grounded in Camden, New Jersey, being both of our hometown. Me being Jersey Joe's oldest grandson, back in 2021, we were blessed to raise a statue of him and put it on the Camden waterfront. It was a 10-year odyssey journey for me to find the funding to get the support, and in my journey to do that, Darian and I found one another, and we started to have dialogue, and he kind of has been, with me peripherally and behind me the entire time. And the whole time I kind of stepped back and said, man, you and I are kindred spirits. We're just trying to keep the legacy of these great African American champions in the mind's eye of people today and tomorrow. Um, as I said, Darian and I, we actually went down to Baltimore. We both went down to I went down to the gravesite with him. He took me there, which was an honor to be down there with that giant headstone with GANS. And I'm standing there with Darian GANS side by side as we watched, me continue to go on and ultimately complete the task of getting the statue up. Um, Darian's my friend, and again, I'm third generation. I'm Jersey Joe's oldest grandson. I was born to do what I'm doing, and Darian picked up the legacy and has been born to do what he's doing, which is to make sure that it's never forgotten.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, it's hard to forget when you got Joe Gaines fighting a guy named Jersey Joe Walcott, not your grandfather, but the other Joe Walcott, who your grandfather was named after. But Joe Gans fought him in San
Now, that's
Francisco
that's a good.
in 1906. he fought him, and then after the fight, Walcott shot himself in the hand.
I heard about,
Wow.
yeah, I know of that. Familiar
And
with that.
it was a draw.
Tough because
So
I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that
there's a
the
perfect
The
original
20 rounds.
combination.
Yeah.
Walcott, yeah, who was
Yeah,
one of the first African American, or actually he was a Bayesian. He was from Barbados, but he was
Right,
the
yes,
first.
right.
He was a welterweight champion,
yeah.
and yeah, he was Grandpop's father's hero, Grandpop's hero, and the name followed Grandpop into his professional career. Because just as Darian has said, many people of that era had stage names. They fought with with another name, a modified version of their name. Joe Louis Barrow, Marilyn
Yeah, well,
Monroe. I
well,
forget
we,
what her name was, but
yeah,
Clark. They all
I
had different
always,
names, uh,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
I call them
interesting,
government
to
names.
know that. I didn't know. I forgot
I
that
said I always call them
Walcott flew.
government names
That's
because
pretty
it
cool.
protects the innocent. But so look,
Oh,
yeah, let's hop into this. Do
Okay.
you know what year Joe Gans won the lightweight championship?
Oh, that's easy. I'm actually wearing a T-shirt that is 1902. So at May 12th of 1902, he became the champ. He defeated Frank Earn, uh, who's Canadian. He defeated him for that title. And after fighting him a second time, as he fought him in 1900 and lost that fight. Well, they had to stop the fight because he had a cut over his eye, and they stopped that fight. So the interesting thing about that, about Joe Gans, is that he was able to be study. He would study his opponents, and he took time to study Frank Earn's fight style so that he would time it just right when he met him again to actually jab him and basically make him knock himself out. So I thought that was an amazing thing that I learned about Joe Gans, and him winning the title was special in at that date.
Do you
So
know what Joe Gans' um, fight name was?
oh, the old master.
Do you know why they call him the Old Master?
I would just say that he was considered the greatest lightweight of all time. And he mastered his skill. I think he's a master boxer. He mastered his skill set. And a lot of fighters at that time looked to Joe Gans to be one of the most greatest, a great fighter and a great scientific fighter. So I just think he was a master boxer. People respected that.
Yes, he was. He
can
was
I jump
very
in?
fundamentally sound
Oh,
as a boxer. And what you were saying to reemphasize that not only was he a masterful boxer, very fundamentally sound, but he trained himself to master skills by looking at other fighters, like you were saying, their techniques, and then he would put certain things into his own repertoire of fighting
right.
to sharpen it up. And by doing that, that's why they call him the old master, because he was very colorful in his technique, in his fight ways. With man, oh man, was he beautiful?
I want to add
Now,
to that. I want to add to that if I can.
come on.
But they say that he studied his opponent's weaknesses and to was able to capitalize on that, like I was
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
But
he would
yeah,
have a fight plan. He wouldn't just go in there fighting.
that's right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Now, when you talk about Joe Gans and you talk about Jack Johnson, during segregation, we had a African American boxing league,
Okay.
and doing that African American style boxing, there was a thing called battle royale. Are you familiar about that with Joe
I'm
Gans?
I'm familiar with that. During,
Mm,
during his young life, that was something that it was called a spectacle, which people would consider exploitation of fighters. They would tie a blindfold around all of the little, small boxers, tie a blindfold around their head, face, and expect them to go in, and whoever the last one standing would be the winner, and they would throw money down at them, as so that was that practice and learning in that environment, which it wasn't pretty, because at that time, that era of Jim Crow or before that, I mean, it was just a vicious way of exploiting, I think. But it was a rough time for fighters or young kids that were doing that. I mean, but
Yeah, yeah, and that was very
yeah,
popular in the African American communities where they would do that, blindfold them, bunch of fighters in the ring, and the
yeah,
last man
yeah.
standing. And Joe Gant did that, and that's where he horned his boxing skills at
It's
by
instant.
doing that, just much like Jack Johnson did. You know, um, as it's reported, do you know what year and how old he was when he began his professional career?
So Joe Gans began fighting professionally 1891,
That
and
is correct.
he was 17 when he started fighting professionally. Uh, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Now that marriage that you talked about earlier, Joe Gans, uh, did he have any children in any of those marriages?
Well, he had two children when he passed. That I mean, of course, it could be said that he may have had other, children, but I know the two that are documented. Um, James Gans and Julia Gans. That's what I do. I think James is actually, well, he's buried in the same plot with Joe Gans. But I'm not sure the wife. I don't. It wasn't the wife that I spoke about. It was the wife before that.
Mary
Her name was
was Mary Gans.
Well, there was a Martha Gans. That was his fourth wife. The first wife, there was a lady named Florence Desmond. I
Hmm.
know that. I studied that, but that was one of the first. And then there was a Mary, yeah, it was Mary Beulah Gans. So she was
That is
probably the
correct.
first. Yeah, Mary Beulah. So yeah, so that could have been, and that, just in research, a lot of things get misplaced, or not, you know, things are hidden, and then they're being uncovered, where we can get some clarity on whose children they were, because it seemed like those children stayed with him throughout his life until he passed. So uh yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So with the, we'll go back in, with the battle royale.
yeah,
So we stay on track.
okay,
He had around about a dozen, some of those type of fights in that royale. You know, the main fight that people scream about. Uh, are you aware of this fight that he had with Oscar Badler Nelson?
yes, you would say that was his nemesis, or his rivalry. So yeah, he fought Battling Nelson for the 42 round fight, which is the most popular fight. I mean, in Goldfield, Nevada, 1906. That was a big fight. I mean, 42 rounds scheduled. That was and it was a very gruesome 100, and I think it was 103 degrees outside. It was a test of his boxing mastery. I mean, that was a brutal fight, and Joe Gans definitely showed his scientific expertise, his master. He showed you his masterful skills in that fight.
Yes, he did. That's the
Yeah,
longest fight in boxing history, 42 rounds.
42 rounds. Yeah.
And on that 33rd round, he broke his hand.
I was
But he
going
was,
I was going to say
yeah,
that. Yeah, and the clever thing about him, he didn't show that. So I think he like limped around as if it was his leg, but he never showed that he broke his hand, which was again another psychologically, he was very strength, his wisdom of being able to know to do that, and still come out and still deliver punishment, in a scientific way. I just think that was amazing, just to know that.
Now, are you aware who the promoter was?
Yes, Tex Rickard. Tex Rickard was a big name, respected. He's actually the founder of the Madison Square Garden. Who you know, but Tex Rickard was a big name, and I think he had a respect for Joe Gans because he had a statue made for him. It was a statue that sits in the garden to this day. It stands there, and boxers used to come in and rub the glove for good luck. But Tex Rickard was basically behind a lot of the promotion of that time, and like I said, he still held Joe Gans in great esteem. So
Yeah, well, Tex Rickard was from Goldfield, Nevada, and which was a mining town, a gold mining town. And when Joe Gans came there for the fight, he came on the train because that was the only way to get there.
right, right,
And because it was a gold mining town, they used gold coins, Tex Rickard did, to help the fight
right.
with
Crazy.
Joe Gans and Badler Nelson. And Tex Rickard was a newspaper person. They called him a clipper, where they clip articles out of papers and put certain things together. That's
Right,
who Tex Rickard was. But Tex Rickard also put not only that fight for the first African American champion, but he also put the fight on with Burns and Jack Johnson
Johnson.
in Sydney, Australia in 1908 to
Right,
get the first African American heavyweight champion, which was Jack Johnson. And a lot of time people get the familiarity confused.
right. They do because I mean, Jack Johnson was more available to in history to find. I mean, Joe Gans, his legacy was kind of quiet. Nobody, only few people, wrote about him or talked about him.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they had the same promoter, but it was different time periods of that
Right.
promotion, you know. So that makes it, very interesting why people get them confused a lot of time in covering history about being the first. And
Right.
also, he also, Tex Rickard, named that fight with Joe Gans and Badley Nelson the fight of the
Right.
century.
Fight of the century. Yeah, because it was
But that was the first fight of the century. And then he
right.
turned around and named the Jack Johnson Burns fight the fight of the
Right.
century. So that's the way a lot of people get a lot of things when it comes to the first African American champion are confused is because of that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So, but tonight we're talking about Joe Gans, who was the first African American world champion. And on the scene and on the screen right now is his nephew, sixth generation strong, Darian Gant. So the people are just tuning in. People are tuning in, coming on, listening, tuning out. But it's dynamite that you're very aware
Yeah.
of Joe Gant's history, and it's glad that somebody in his family has picked up to keep his legacy going strong, and that's what we have to do to keep people's legacy going strong. And you know, Vincent Cream, who's the grandson of Jersey Joe Walcott, he keeps his grandfather's name going strong. Statues. He goes to speak to children and all of that about who his grandfather was, and it's just something amazing
Yeah.
that Vince has done.
Yeah.
It's to do something like that, and what you're doing also. So
Can
we're going to stay with this fight, the Badland Nelson fight. That do you know the purse? You know what the
so
purse was? The purse was big time for that era.
$33,000 was the purse, and Joe Gans actually accepted terms of him only making 11,000 of that purse, and battling Nelson. And this is win or lose. Battling Nelson got 22,000 of that purse.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Well, on the upside, with that, but 42 rounds, man, and during both of those their career, and they fought three times.
Yes, yes,
Next to his last, Joe Gans, last to his next two fight or three fights, he fought him again twice at the end of his career, battling Nelson, and they battled too. Let me tell you. So let me tell you, with that in mind, there was a hotel that they stayed in the Goldfield Hotel.
yes.
Joe Gans did. He had it in Baltimore, this hotel. Talk a little bit about that hotel that he
Yeah.
had.
So he was inspired by this fight, and he did what most responsible men would have done, businessmen or just somebody that wanted to carry and leave a legacy for his family, his people. He went to Baltimore with the purse, and he built the Goldfield Hotel in 1907. October of 1907 was the day. Was the time when he launched that nightclub, which there wasn't many what they call black and tan clubs. This was basically the Cotton Club before the Cotton Club. So all sports musicians and anybody who was in that life, famous, they would come there. And that, I think that's, I mean, of course they knocked it down in 1960, but just the description I've heard about the inside, it was elaborate. I mean, the furniture, it was actually used, a part of that. He had a boxing gym where he would train young fighters who were coming up, who were inspired by him and just wanted to learn. But he still gave back. He still bought something that wasn't there. He did a lot for music. UB Blake, who was the inventor of ragtime, this is something called ragtime, and he gave UB Blake a position to lead off on all of the music there. I just thought that was, that's a pioneer. I'm not only in boxing, in life. He was able to do something for the culture and for music, for just in business. So I mean, it's amazing. There's so much more to learn about that particular business, that establishment, and it was
Yeah, and that establishment bears his name on it.
yeah.
That corner, which was a hotel, brick building built similar to out there in Goldfield, Nevada. They have a monument. A dear friend of mine, Tony Treem, who's a boxing historian.
Mm,
Um, Me and him did Joe Gans for a long time. Covered him from A to Z because he's something to cover.
yes.
And Tony Treem loves Joe Gans to death, and I thank Joe Gans. I mean Tony Treem for so much, man. When he was on the show doing stuff like that, it was educational then, and what you're doing, a family member, it's educational now to have so much knowledge about him, six generations strong. It's a blessing, because some people can't connect the dots when it comes to family members because of what happened to African American families. And it seems like your family um, has things intact with his great legacy that he has. And we're proud to have you on the World Boxing Review. With this question, you know how long his career lasted?
Uh, it was 19 years. Of course, in 1909 was his last fight with Jabez White, and that
Mm.
was pretty much before, because he was already riddled with tuberculosis. So even at that Battle of Nelson fight, before that, I mean, he was kind of, he lost those two fights, but he fought courageously. But he was already he had the illness, which was prevalent at that time. It was
Yeah, it was a
tuberculosis
big
was rampant.
communicable disease
Yeah, it
that
was
was
rampant.
wiping a lot of people out
Right.
in America, and they didn't have vaccines at that time to
Exactly.
control
Exactly.
tuberculosis like they have now.
Right.
They have a lot of vaccines to help control tuberculosis in
Yeah.
this era, but it wasn't that in the era where he was living and coming
Right.
up in that era.
But
Now
that was
I'm gonna take this name to you. It's somebody that he fought. Does this name ring a bell? Jack Blackburn.
yes. Jack Blackburn was the trainer of Joe Louis. But his reputation is fierce too. I mean, he was a great fighter, great trainer, but he had a lot of knowledge too. But yes, that I'm familiar with him. And a
Well,
lot of those boxers at that time, a lot of their lifestyles may have, his career may have been longer, Jack Blackburn, than it was. I mean, it's just the lifestyle, the sporting lifestyle, But he was a great fighter. And
well, back in that era, black men average lifespan was only 33 years, and for
mhm.
white counterparts was only 45.
Yes,
So
yes,
when he passed, being 30 some odd years, he lived a full life because
right,
that was the lifespan expectancy
right,
during that time. But him and Jack Blackburn, they did fight, and he did win. They fought at the national place in Philadelphia,
mm,
and he fought at 100 and some pounds, and Jack Blackburn outweighed him by
that's right,
quite a few pounds, but he was
right,
still able to pull off a, a great win. And you talked about Philadelphia earlier,
right,
and that's why he spent time in Philadelphia. He
right,
fought there, one of the all-time Philadelphia great fighters and trainer in Jack Blackburn.
right.
Jack Blackburn was not only a great trainer, but he was a masterful fighter too,
That's
as
right.
they all said.
And
So,
I wanted to add something to that I learned too. When I mentioned the family story of Joe Gans spending time in Chester, and my grandpa, we lived, our family, the Gans family was from Darby Township, but in between Chester and Darby Township is a place called Leaperville, which is probably a stone throw, a few blocks, which is not there now. But there was a man named James Doherty. He basically, a lot of the fighters went there to train. So he had a cafe, and a lot of the fighters, Jack Johnson, a lot of the big names went to train. It was in back of the cafe. And the point I'm making is that spending time in Philly, but that man, Joe Gans spent time there. I mean, he was right in Leaperville, and I just think Philadelphia. I
well,
learned that was,
Philadelphia
yeah,
was the place. That's why they call it the fight capital of the world, is
right,
because boxing really found its roots in Philadelphia because of a captain of a ship
uh,
had picked up
mm,
boxing uh, in Asia,
mm,
and he let the guys on the ship for something to do to kill the monotony pick up boxing. And when that ship came in to Philadelphia, the guys were doing it, and that's why boxing really took off in Philadelphia because of that captain, and what them sailors and stuff brought was boxing
that's an amazing story.
into the state. Sullivan Island, and
Mm,
Sullivan, one of the first fighters that they get mixed up with John L. Sullivan and him. So,
okay,
Irish guys. But yeah, Jersey Joe Walcott, Jack Blackburn, great names of old fighters that uh, Joe Gans fought, and boy, did he fight him well, and he won. Do you know around but what his record is? His
He
outstanding record he had.
I seen a couple of different numbers. There was one 198 fights. I saw 108 97 wins. He had 12 losses. And he had 100 knockouts, which I thought was, that was incredible. But uh, you know, that's
Well,
still amazing.
I'm gonna go with some of the official uh, people that keep boxing records,
Okay.
like 147 wins, 10 losses, and 16 draws with 101 knockouts. So that's not
I
a
like
bad
that.
record at all.
I like that.
That, yeah,
Yeah, because
that's
I
not
saw different.
a
Yeah,
bad knockout ratio
no, it's great.
at all.
I've read that Ring magazine counted him as one of the 100 greatest punchers of all time too. I mean, that's just that tells you it's a testament to the respect that the Gans name carries.
Yes, in boxing,
Yeah,
he won the title in Canada.
yes,
When he won the title against the Canadian,
right,
and Jack Johnson fought a Canadian, in order Burns was from Canada, who
right,
Jack Johnson got the title off of. So there's a lot
right.
of similarities, and we understand why people sometimes get it confused by
Okay,
the wording.
right.
But Joe Gans, he was second to none in terms of his accomplishment of being the first African American champion.
Right.
However, what made Jack Johnson so big, he was a heavyweight.
Heavyweight. Yep. And
And
respect.
by the color line being drawn by John L. Sullivan, who had won the heavyweight title, and everyone that follows suit that won the heavyweight champion just happened to be white. When
Right.
Jack Johnson got his opportunity to fight for the heavyweight champion, that's why it rang shockwaves around the world, not only when he got the opportunity, but when he won the heavyweight champion. But
Yes.
Joe Gans was well known too
I,
for his accomplishment, and that's why we're talking about Joe Gans uh, today.
I
And
wanted
with,
to. I
come
didn't
on,
mean. I didn't want to cut you off, but I
no,
had
come
learned
on with it.
too that Joe Gans was actually supposed to be one of Jack Johnson's seconds at that fight. He was sick. He was supposed to be there at that
Yeah,
fight. The newspapers had counted it too. He was actually supposed to be there as one of his seconds.
yeah, yes, the old master. But I'm gonna pull your coattail or something. Now we got uh, um, Vince's family in name in with Gans, and I'm gonna bring my family name into the
Oh,
picture.
okay.
Edward Snowden. Now, before my last name was Snowell, my great grandfather changed it to Snowell. My
Mm.
last name was Snowden.
Wow. That's
And
yeah.
May 7th, he fought Edward Snowden, and he won in the theater in Baltimore. Isn't that
What?
something?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wow. You
Edward
blew me away
Snowden.
with that. You blew me away with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blown
I
away.
told you I had some tricks up my sleeve for you.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm
Yeah.
lightheaded now. I'm lightheaded over that. And you know what? And that's the specialness of my journey was finding out things like that. Things would that's just it's the irony there. It's a lot of irony tonight.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that Badland Nelson fight in Goldfield, Nevada, what made it so popular and big, number one, it was in a gold town.
Right.
And Tex Rickard used them guys with the gold coin. Tex Rickard took
Saw
pictures.
that. I saw that photo.
Joe Gans took a picture with his head with all these gold, like Badland Nelson did.
Yeah.
You know, Uh, the Merchant Hotel was
Merchant
a part
Hotel.
of it.
That's where he trained at. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
the
Yeah.
Merchant Hotel and things like that. And
Oh, you got a lot of tricks up your sleeve. Yeah, you would have to know about the Merchant's Hotel. That's a good one. No, that's
yeah,
good. I'm sorry.
but Tex Rickard had a partner too in the deal, the
Wow.
Baker. Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
had.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
he had a partner in that deal, but let me tell you, man, this fight, um, it was so big, 11,000 fans was in that fight at that fight, but the president's son,
Yes. That's right. Yep.
Teddy Roosevelt,
Teddy
son
Roosevelt was
was at
there.
that fight,
That's right.
right?
That's right. Yes, he was. I'm trying to remember the row he was in, but I did come across that too.
Yeah,
That was a it was the fight of the century. That's what it was.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
And who else? His son Kermit Roosevelt. That was Roosevelt's son's name. But you had a great writer that who wrote something about Jack Johnson that caused riots and pulled Jeffries out of retirement, named Jack
Jack,
London.
Jack London. Yep.
He was
Yep.
at that fight too, as he was over in Australia with um, with Jack Johnson fought Burns. But
Right.
at the Nelson Joe Gans fight, he was there. And boy, how did I want to ask you because not too many people know this. Gans won the first fight. How did it end? That
Oh,
42.
well, and of course after breaking his hand, but the whole time, I mean, the combinations, the he peppered his eyes closed. I mean, battling Nelson's eyes closed. I mean, he was pretty much beaten, winning the fight. The crowd even became part of Joe Gans. They was rooting for Joe Gans at one point because Battling Nelson was fighting a little dirty. He punched him
He
in the
not fighting
groin.
a little dirty.
Not
He
little,
was
but
he fought
he fought
he
dirty.
got disqualified for a foul,
A
man.
foul. And the thing
He
that
tried. Let me tell you, he tried to end the family legacy.
yeah,
He hit him in the family
yeah.
jewels. Tell it the way it really is.
But you know what amazed me about that? George Seiler, the referee, that shows you the character of that man. He was able to judge it fairly and
Yes, he
call
did.
that. And the
Yes,
crowd
he
was
did.
behind Joe Gans. That says a lot about him and his character. Even in that era, you could be hung, killed for fighting, like Jack
Well,
Johnson was.
it was the Jim Crow era.
Jim Crow era.
During
Yes,
segregation,
yes.
blacks had to go to the back of the room instead of the front of the room. They had to go in the side door instead of the front door. Joe Gans lived through all of that.
I
And with this fight in Goldfield, Nevada, Joe Gans came out on top, and it showed how fair
yes.
the referees and the fans were out there. They
Yeah, I was
gave him the
amazed
right
by
decision that was made. The referee and them said that's enough. They disqualified Badland Nelson for
Manny Nelson. He's an
yeah, a low blow,
interesting fellow.
baby. Right in the family jewels. The
Yeah, and
family
the
jewels. He tried to wreck the family. He tried to make sure none of your
Got the rep.
family.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
video from that is even telling. It's a silent film, but you could see the grimace. Yeah,
yeah.
that
And you
was
could
a
see how
very
fair the fans were. They jumped in the
yes,
ring after all of the racial stuff
yes,
that they used to build up the fight with
right,
a white man fighting a black man during those eras, and how people had to catch the train out there because it was so far inland. You know what I mean?
yes,
They had to come up to this mining town
right.
called Goldfield, Nevada, to
Oh,
witness Badland Nelson, who just happened to be white, get disqualified during that time. That was big, giant news, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
it really
It
was.
was obvious what he did. I mean, it was
But
obvious.
that it shows how fair everybody was
Yeah,
around it. that might be one of the
Yeah.
fairest decisions in boxing for a big time fight to call it off like that, and people
Yeah.
mob the ring, and they have built that ring special. I got a picture of that.
It was it
Uh,
was his it was historically fair.
what's
Yes.
that?
It was historically fair because there was a whole lot of fights after that and before that that were not fair.
That yeah,
And
that
when you recognize the allure of a black fighter and a white fighter at that time, it was, you know how Aaron and I always talk about, you know, you got the steak and you got the steak that has the sizzle. You know, you got the athlete, but then you got the athlete that's flamboyant, and that's how you get paid, having that little
Yeah.
extra nuance, that extra something. So a black fighter and a white fighter in 1902. I mean, just imagine, man, we're talking about 43 years past slavery, 44 years past slavery. And, you know, it wasn't easy to walk the streets of as a black man, let alone beat a white guy in the ring and be the type of champion that could be, or the type of fighter, the type of man, the type of professional that they got behind that. It really says a lot about. I just want to jump in because when we talk about his masterful, you know, ability to exhibit himself as a boxer,
Right.
the thing that Aaron even, you know, turned me on to in our conversations was he mastered the jab. The greatest punch in boxing is the jab. Without a jab, you just a girl fighting. No disrespect to the ladies. But
Hey,
you just
well,
Well,
girls are fighting pretty good now, Vince.
yeah, but I see
Yeah,
what
okay.
he's
Yeah, you
saying.
got
He didn't waste
yeah,
punches.
girls are fighting pretty good.
Yeah, he didn't go in swinging
yeah,
wildly. He
that's about
called it
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
hitting. Yeah, he called it straight hitting. But yes, yes,
yeah. But to master the jab and to use it as an offensive and defensive weapon,
right,
and then as you said, I mean, the sport was evolving at that time.
right.
Everything, the thing that I always think about when we talk about fighters from that era, as well as all the way up into the Walcott, the Jersey Joe era. These guys were like in America, jazz is a unique art form. It was born in America. No one ever played jazz until we started playing it here. So when Charlie Parker came up with a riff on his saxophone, it was the first time anyone ever heard it. After
Mhm.
they heard it, they could go back and mimic it.
Right.
Boxing was the same way. There wasn't a lot of movement. There wasn't a mastery of a jab. But after someone like Joe Gans demonstrated it, people were able to follow it and mimic it. And so when you talk about boxing, or when we talk about boxing, we're talking about something that we're talking right now about original masters of the sweet science. These are people that mastered the
Yes,
science of boxing.
his main thing was fundamental skills. The art of
Yeah.
hitting and not getting hit is what's purely
Yes.
boxing. You know, a
Yes.
lot of times people want to see guys just stand in the middle of the ring and battle it out. But like they used to say, you keep doing that, you ain't after the fight, you ain't gonna be able to count your money when you get it. So when you learn
Yeah,
to be like the old master
yeah,
called Joe Gans, when you learn how to hit, not get hit, at the end of the day, when the paycheck and the money comes around, you're able to say, oh man, they didn't keep it. I got it all.
yeah.
They got all the loot. Yeah.
It was often said too that he barely moved, so he would slightly move. He would just miss a punch because he had. They said he had almost a sixth sense that he would know. They asked him about that, and he said, "Well, they said, well, how do you know that somebody's how to move, when to move?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, he just knows what the person is thinking." And this is some of the commentary that I've heard of him dialogue he's had. And I just think that ability is natural. That's like a God given. I mean, of course you train, but I think he had that a specialness about him.
Certain things are given to superior athletes. Like you said, the gifts of doing something, and through practice, you master 'em.
Right.
And so that's what he was able to do. And boxing's not running around the ring. Boxing's on the dime, as the old fellas taught me, is when
On the
you can hit, not get hit right there in front of a joker. That's boxing.
Wow,
And now when
that's
you're
skill set.
when you're able to put motion in it, that's a different thing, because now you're putting different angles in where the guy has to get and make adjustments. That's what people in this era sometimes get lost in, is that there are fundamentals to everything, and they forget about ring generalship.
The general, yes.
Ring generalship is how you handle yourself in the ring with different styles you got. And that's the way judges judge fights, with ring generalship. Is he hitting with clear punching? How is his defense from getting stop and hit? Or is a star, if he's meeting a guy that's moving, is he going forward? Is the person going forward cutting the ring off? You know, that's ring generalship. Or the guy moving, is he controlling the fight with his movement and the other guy can't cut the ring off? So when you see a guy fighting on the dime, and I'll tell you, like fighting on the dime, James Toney was masterful at it. Floyd Mayweather was masterful at fighting on the dime,
Yes.
boxing on the dime,
Master
hitting and
box.
not getting hit. Tremendous defense. That all of that kind of stuff comes from all of those guys before him who practice it to master it, to hand it down to one another.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because in boxing, there ain't no schools. It's called wit, grit, and bull crap. And if you ain't been around those who had the wit, grit, and bull crap with them, you weren't getting none of it, and they weren't getting it, giving it away just for free. If you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to learn and if you wanted to pay attention with their wit and grit, they would give it to you. They would pass it on down the line, and then you could show and teach something. This wit and grit is called OJT, on the job training. And
Yeah.
boy, man, we've been on this show a long time, man. We're coming into the final hour, but look, we're going to give you your last chance of what you want to say, because we could be here all night talking
Oh
about
yeah.
Joe Gans.
Yeah. What I can say, and I just, and it's kind of, I wanted to cover this in the beginning. Um, my first knowledge of who he was through my one of my uncles, Curtis Gans, who was like the family historian. So basically, from the time that I went to his house, my dad took me to his house, mid '90s, early to mid '90s, and I walked in that living room, and my cousin Harry Gans came into the front room with a picture. It was an antique frame, and it was of a man, a black man in a fighting pose. And the more I looked at that picture, and my uncle started to explain who he was, and I saw the resemblance. It was kind of like, that scene that you see on one of the old Dracula movies when the family goes to the house, and it's called a family resemblance scene, and you get the dramatic thunder, and you look at the face,
Yeah.
and that's what I felt, and then my family surrounded me, and I think from looking at his face on that picture, it seemed like the spark was given to me. It was like learn everything about me, and then you'll know more about yourself. So
I
I took
mean,
that.
don't tell me you've been out there taking pictures and falsifying that you're Joe Gans, because you look and resemble you've been follow up in your own pictures. Uh,
Oh, that's a good idea.
you look.
No,
I told you you had something up your sleeve,
no, no,
boy.
no, no, no. You got all of the
You
hidden treasure.
resemble him so much,
I,
man.
nah, and
Yeah,
I
he
think,
really,
like I
really
said,
does, man. He's about
that
the same height, I mean,
the same
everything
height.
about him. I mean, it's like it's undeniable.
Yeah,
And
in my
Darian's a fit guy. He's a fireman, so he's fit.
yeah,
But he's a
funny.
humble guy, man. I know it's cycling back in, but yeah, I mean, I before as I guess you get close to closing, Aaron, I just want to thank you and thank Darian for coming in and really allowing us to share the information and to spread the legacy. And Aaron, your platform reaching to being out here for 25 years, man, and you know some of the stories that you have and your knowledge is it's just a pleasure, man, to be a part of this.
Hey man, hey, we reach one, we teach one, and we learn from each other. That's what makes the world go around. No one knows it all, and it's always great to speak with people who are trying to keep their family legacy alive. Because we do it in our family. You know, we got a lot of stuff in our family. Well, not only myself, but with Civil War stuff in the Army and the black units and stuff like that. So my sister and them, they take care of that, and you know, I handle the boxing. That's why I do these type of shows to give people the platform in order to get the word out what they're trying to do for the family without leaving. How can people who want to talk to you, Darian, how can they get in touch with
They can get in touch with me through my email, tskgans82 at hotmail.com. They can give me a call. I actually have a business too. We sell footwear, so it's the shoekings82.com. That's our Instagram as well. And I would be glad to
Man,
just
you might as well get a Gans shoe together while you're selling
oh
shoes.
no, we have some big ideas, and that's why I'm grateful for this platform too. This is to establish that, and we want to collaborate, talk to, because it'll all help in putting the pieces together that haven't been uncovered. So yeah, they can reach me that way.
Say it again.
Uh,
Say it again.
all right, my email is tskgans, the number 82 at hotmail.com. And you can reach me through my business, the shoekings82.com. It's the shoekings82 on Instagram as well. But yeah, I'll be glad to. And this is good because the boxing community, I wanted that dialogue, and just definitely, we should have a show just to go over your resume. I mean, you have an amazing resume yourself, and I'm just honored to be here, to that you would take time out to
Yeah,
let me
man.
speak.
God is good, man.
Yes,
Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. That's the golden rule when it comes down. We're all in this thing together called brotherhood.
yes,
When it comes to boxing, one boxing community. That's what I look at. And you have to learn to love one another, and you got to learn how to help one another. And when you learn how to love one another and help one another, love makes the world go around. And then once the world starts going around with love, then the mean green that grows on the trees, you get to sit down with your brother and cut up some of the green. You know what I mean?
I
And,
hear you.
and that's what it's all about, you know. Uh,
There you go.
um,
There you go. Let me say
it's
this.
about sharing, man. It's all about sharing. When people stop getting greedy and realize that they're needy and start just putting love out to one another, you get more.
Right.
The more people you got, and boy, let me tell you, man, that Turk Al Sheikh over there in Saudi Arabia, man, oh
Mm.
man, boy, is he investing a lot of time and money into boxing. And he owns Ring Magazine now, and I
Wow.
hope that he does some articles on Joe Gann with the new Ring Magazine, just as well as Jack Johnson
Yes,
and
exactly.
Jersey Joe Walcott, who's the fourth African American heavyweight champion.
All right.
This what it's all about. When you got a platform like he got, it would help spread the news to foe and like, is
Yes.
that who Joe Gans was, who Jack Johnson was, and who Jersey Joe Walcott is, and people will pick up on it now. It's fun to read all the stories like we went over it tonight. And in closing, I like to say this, man. Darren, thank you, brother,
Thank
for
you.
coming on the World Boxing Review Radio. And I'll give you one more chance before we close it all up. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I think that this has just been a great opportunity, as I stated, to reach the boxing community. I've been on this journey since that story I just told you, back in the 90s. Um, it's been a long time, but it's now time for us to reach each other, and we can learn more. This is to establish the Gans from a Gans family perspective, one of the true descendants. And I think if we all band together, and we can actually get a little more done. Uh, and that's just one of our family goals, to and continue that legacy like my grandfather wanted. My great grandfather Henry Gans and my grandfather Henry Gans Jr. wanted that. So I come speaking in that same voice, carrying that torch for my uncle Curtis, my uncle Gregory Gans, who's not with us anymore, and my father who gave me that name, so Byron Gans. So that's all I have to say, and thank you again. And Vince,
I want
anytime I
to
get
say
to
one
talk to
thing and
you,
give one quick plug, Aaron. In September, I got my 11th boxing.
Vince, your sound went out. You're moving the phone
In
to foot.
September at the Darian's going to be there, but I think he's going to be able to meet up and
Yeah, your sound went in and out because you're moving your device around, so you were going in and out. We couldn't hear you. If you can come with
so
that
what I
and
was
keep your device still, because the feed you're streaming and it's going everywhere because you keep moving the phone. If
how
you
is
can
it right
come,
now? Is it good
uh,
right now?
yeah, you're cool right now.
Let me just say this one thing real quick. I got my Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame T-shirt on. Um, Ray McCline, the president of Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, is another person that reveres and keeps the boxing history and legacy alive for many great fighters. In September, I'll be down there. Darian, you'll be down there. You'll be invited. And Aaron, who is in many Hall of Fames, including the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Yeah, time permit, scheduling permit, I'm sure he'll be there as well. So we'll be able to continue the dialogue and expand the footprint of everything you're trying to do, Darian.
I appreciate that. I love y'all for that, man. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, man. We want to thank Vince for coming on the World Boxing Review radio show. Vince is the grandson of Jersey Joe Walcott, Vincent Cream. Thank you for coming on the World Boxing Review.
Thank you.
Darian, sixth generation strong nephew of Joe Gans. Thank you for coming on the World Boxing Review. And we'll be having both of y'all back on here from time to time. But man, what a special tonight. A treat. That
Yes.
history and culture of all our
Mhm.
studies are best attractive, best qualified to reward a person's research, as it takes upon springs in the motives that spell the destiny of the human being. Thank you for coming on the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell, and they call me the Hall of Fame trainer of champions. Thank you.